Welcome to the Tonya Hoffman's fabulous TV show. I am your host, Tonya Hoffman, and as always, I have an incredible, fabulous guest star today, Miss Laura Cole. Hey, Laura.
Hello, hello.
So we're going to hear all about Laura and her amazingness. Oh my gosh, you will want to buckle in today because this ride is a fast and furious one. But before we get going, I wanted to remind you that we want you to go out there and change the world from the front of the room. So get involved with the Public Speakers Association. Go to Public Speakers with an S, Association all spelled out.com today to find out how you too can go out there and get your message heard and your name known so people go, wow, right? And then also don't forget we have our Public Speakers Conference coming up July 6th through the 8th in 2018. And so that's going to be in Las Vegas. So you definitely want to jump on that opportunity. Alrighty, so let's get back with Laura. So Laura, tell us how fabulous you are and what's going on in your world.
Oh, great things are going on. I want to say, first of all, that what Tonya does is amazing. I actually got my first conference speaking opportunity through Tonya and a connection that she made. So that's super excited. That's what I'm manifesting. I want to speak in front of thousands. These principles that I've learned are changing people's lives. And so I want to get it out to the public as much as possible. So Tonya has made that happen for me. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about, manifesting, especially a lot of people get stuck on, what does that really mean?
What that means is that you can create anything. I say that anything is possible, and I mean anything. So when people come to me and they say, well, I would love to do this, but I only think I can do that. It's me showing them that anything is possible. For example, I had a client that she'd been in a corporate job 40 years, wasn't happy, but she wanted to start her own business. Within 12 weeks of me teaching her these principles, she'd quit her job, she started her own business, and she was already hiring her first employee. So not only can you make anything happen, it happens so exponentially fast because you connect to your intuition. We are given messages, gifts every day from that unseen force, but we don't trust them and we don't follow them. So I teach how to connect to that, how to believe in yourself, and what I call clearing the portal. And basically what that is getting all that junk that fills our mind that blocks the great ideas from coming in. Those negative thoughts of I can't. As Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I get rid of that word. I have people notice what they're thinking. Negative thoughts about others, especially those negative, demeaning thoughts about themselves. Because we are our worst critic. We're so much harder on ourselves than anybody else. And honestly, one thing that I work on a lot is forgiveness, because we put in our heads so much of the anger, resentment. And when we do that, we think we're holding them back and we're putting them in prison so they can't hurt us again. We're keeping ourselves safe. But what we don't realize is when you hold somebody in prison, you're in there with them. And you can't get out and see the beautiful world and what's around you as long as you're giving them that energy of anger. So it's about people loving themselves, letting go of what is not serving them. And the last thing is to trust that, that whole concept of let go and let God, whether you call God, the universe, source, energy, there's so many different names for it, but it's putting out there what you would love in specific detail, right? Because if a college student went to the bank and said, I want a lot of money, they might want $500 and think, fantastic. If you had somebody in their 60s that was a CEO of a company, $500 wouldn't be a lot of money. We'd be going into, 6 and 7 figures. So it's really about getting specific about what you would love, giving it up, ask, what do I do to get there? And knowing intuitively that you're going to get the answer. And like I said, once you do, trust it. And
right.
Go for it, because it can come to us in the craziest ways. Whenever you're saying something out of the blue, or I got lucky. There's no luck. There's no coincidence. That's you manifesting exactly what you would love. Now, because Joseph Murphy says faith is thought infused with feeling. But this can work two ways. It can take you down the path that you would love, or you can take it down, it can take you down a path that is not so great.
Right. And what I've always found, because I know I had to get over a lot of blocks, and I think everybody does, right? This whole, oh, that person's so perfect. They had to get over their own issues, and I had so much negativity, and I gravitate, and I think a lot of people do gravitate to negativity just from their past and what's happened to them in past. Do you have kind of some advice for how to start moving your mind away from that?
Well, the number one thing that I encourage people to do is I start with them to write down 101 things that they would love to be, do, and have. Like I said, not what they think they can do, but what they would love. Whether that's going to Starbucks every day and treating yourself to a grande vanilla latte, or it's visiting every continent in the world. It doesn't matter what it is. Everybody's dream is going to be different. Some people want to move to Wisconsin. Somebody want to start their own business. It's what makes your heart happy. So you start by listing these things. And then I encourage them to choose the top 5 or 10 that when they look at them, it's the most energetically charged, because you got to have that feeling to bring that into your life. And then you start expanding in, like I said, exact detail. For example, mine was to get my house in Hawaii. That was the one thing on my list. Well, what it turned into was, and you give it with gratitude as if it's already happened. I am so thankful and grateful that when my gate opens on my 5 acres in Hawaii, that I get to drive my Jeep down a winding path. And when I look up, the trees reach all the way to the sky with the vines going to the top. And when I get to the open clearing there, I see my house, and I drive up, I open the door, and my feet crunch on the lava rock. I go inside of my open concept house where there's a couch to seat 12 people for when my family and friends come to visit. But the coolest thing is the whole wall is made of glass, so I can see the beautiful land around me. And I go over and I punch and I tap that little button, and actually the wall is a garage door that the panels are replaced with glass, and it comes all the way up to the ceiling, and I step out onto my deck. And so now the inside has become the outside, and I walk out and I get that papaya off the tree, and I hear my waterfall trickling for where I get to meditate. And I take that papaya, I slice it up, and I take the juiciest bite. All right. All 5 senses, you have to feel it. You can feel it crunching on the lava. You can hear the water. You can see it. You can taste it. And so when you're writing it out, and then allowing yourself to meditate into that, because you have to get still and quiet to hear what you're being told to do. So taking those deep breaths in a quiet place, and then seeing yourself in that, feeling yourself in that, to get that energetic vibe out there. And then you're given the answers. And then you take that action step. One action step that I took was I found this show on HGTV called Hawaii Life, because I thought it was going to cost millions of dollars to get my house in Hawaii. It doesn't. Where I specifically want to live, not many people want to live on that particular part of the island. And I figured out I could buy it now. But it wasn't until I took that little bitty action step, not having to wait for the down payment, but to watch a little TV show that was fun, that I figured out this is a lot more attainable than I ever realized. Nice. And so, visualizing, getting specific, and then taking those little action steps of the ideas that come to you. Those are some of the key steps into manifesting anything.
Well, and for myself, I always look at, what do I want? And then, how can I create it, right? Because a lot of times we wait for someone else to do everything for us instead of just going and creating. Like the public speakers conference, I want to, speak more in Europe. And I'm like, why don't I put my conference next year in Europe, right? You just kind of go, how do I create and manifest and create action so that it works and it actually explodes that way, right?
Right. And you need to know the what exactly what you would love. And then watch it happen. Trust how it's going to happen and unfold, because some people might say, but I don't know people in London and I don't have the connections, and they block themselves. So you ask, get in your meditative state and ask that universe, what can I do to find these resources? What can I do? And then maybe you're getting the thought, we'll start looking at convention centers, or start reaching out to other people that have spoken in London, whatever those is, and then taking action to get there. You don't have, if you wait for perfection, for every bit of how to get it done, it's not going to happen. You will get the answers, and then it's about following through.
I love it, because I think that's that's why we've got our 2 rules for the association. You have to be nice, and then you can't be perfect, because perfection keeps, and I know it kept me from doing so many fun things, because I was so stuck and wanted to know everything before I even stepped into the whole idea that it could happen. And I think it really gets people stuck.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%.
So when you start really looking at, manifesting something amazing in your life, no matter what that may be for yourself, do you find that it's also that momentum kind of charges? It's like a static electricity, right? The more you rub it together, the bigger the shock, right? Something like that. I'm trying to kind of come up with, something kind of visual for people so that they understand that it's about starting it. If you don't start rubbing, you're never going to get the spark.
Right. It's like the snowball effect, right? You start with little things and they lead and they get to bigger and bigger and bigger. And you get to a point, what I call the quantum leap. And you make this huge jump, because what happens is first you might think, I really want a piece of gum, right? You start with something small and you think that would just taste great. I would love that. And what happens is somebody has a piece of gum, you take action and ask, or somebody will just walk up to you and say, I have some gum, do you want a piece? And once you see these little things happen, if you see, law of attraction or The Secret, things like that, people often start with parking spaces. I want a parking space that's close. And so visualizing and feeling it. And then they get these close parking spaces, they're like, this really works. Then it helps you move up to bigger and bigger and bigger, and giving more energy, and and just you start creating bigger and faster the more you do it. Yeah.
I love, there was a moment in 2007 when, I was doing all this manifestation, and at one point, I was like, this doesn't work, and I was like, okay, I was driving in the car, and I remember that I was just like, you get that frustration level, and everything was so heightened, and I was like, if this really works, I want someone to call me right now who's never called me before and ask me something I can help them with immediately. Before I even got that last word out of my mouth, because I was, because you've got that heightened, and you're just like, you feel it. Phone call rings. Someone was on the line that had never called me before. They asked me for someone's number that they were trying to find from a networking group. I happened to have that person's business card sitting on the chair next to me in the car. Yeah. Crazy.
Right. And you didn't know how it was going to happen, but you put it out there. I want this. It's like you make a demand and you have that expectation. But you brought up something really important. Is often, I call our paradigms, our thought patterns that we've had since we're a little bitty. You have to work hard to make money, and working harder it's important, but people think the only way to bring in money is by income from their business, and it can come to us in so many different ways. But often when our paradigm is growing and we're manifesting all this stuff, it's uncomfortable, even though it's great, because we're used to being at a certain level. And so when we start expanding, right, our muscles start hurting because we're training for that triathlon, but we see the end. A lot of times we manifest into our lives things that can bring us back down, where you had that really frustrating day. One of the worst days that I've had was the day before I spoke for my first corporate event. My computer broke down, and I hadn't put my information on a flash drive. Actually got served with papers of that I was being sued for something that should have never happened, and it all worked out beautifully. Nothing even came to it. But like, are you kidding me? Like, I just said to God, if I don't pick up so many clients tomorrow, I'm done. That's where the point was, because I was so low. But I kept practicing these principles and going into gratitude. Gratitude is key. It's the level of abundance. And by golly, the next day, that is the best talk I had ever given, hands down. It was the most clients that I've ever picked up at a speaking engagement. So I don't want people to get, sometimes they don't realize it, but they create these barriers in their walls because they're uncomfortable with the success. So when these things happen, especially the biggest fear, wrap your arms around it and say, I know this doesn't feel good, but this means I'm growing. This means I'm about to explode, because I don't want to deter them from stopping them in their tracks.
Exactly. Love it. Now, how can people get a hold of you, and do you have something special for them today?
Oh, what I love to give, if people take the time to come to my workshops, take the time to listen to your TV show, I offer a free strategy session. And what that entails is an hour of free coaching with me. And we build that dream. We start that vision. I help you get specific about what we talked about. And then I can guarantee you, before you get off that call, you're going to have an action step for the next step that you can take to get you closer to your dream. And that's what I give, a free hour of coaching. And then if they're interested and they feel very connected to me, and because you'll know, your heart will sing and you'll feel it, then they can sign up for my coaching. And if not, I love it, because every person that gets off that phone call is going to have some action that they can choose to take to move them in the direction of where they'd love to be.
Love it. So how do they get a hold of you?
My email address is inspirationaloutcome@gmail.com.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Inspirationaloutcome@gmail.com. So write it down. Go do it right now. Get connected to Laura, because obviously you want to start manifesting today. Don't wait. And just please get connected, because this is what it's all about. Follow her on social media. Obviously, you want her to come in on your next event, your conference, maybe a TV show. Connect with her. And the easiest way is always go to Public Speakers with an S Association, all spelled out.com. We have a directory called Speaker Search. Just type in her name. Laura is easy enough to find. And all of her information is right there too. So thank you, Laura, for being on today. I definitely want you back as soon as possible.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, everyone. We will see you later. Bye, Laura. Bye, everybody.
Bye.